She's still laughing.
That's so funny. Welcome to 5 Lemons Left. We're the real stuff, the lemons making lemonade. So pucker up, because we're going to be discussing our life's lessons and the nitty-gritty details of our spiritual journeys.
Hey y'all, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Drusilla.
I'm Melissa.
Hello, this is Morgan.
And I'm Penny. Welcome to our podcast today.
Hi all, welcome to 5 Lemons Laughing. If you've listened to this podcast before, welcome back. Thank you for being part of our family. And if this is your first time listening, we are a group of soul sisters talking about unconditional love, talking about how we are living the example of unity, prosperity, wholeness, abundance, joy. What are we teaching? How are we living? And how is that reflected out to those around us and into the world? How are we being teachers of God? So, Melissa, start us off, if you would.
All right. Well, a big section of the Course in Miracles is about being a teacher of God. And so we're talking about that today. And so I'm posing these questions. Are you a teacher of God? Am I a teacher of God? Is a Catholic priest a real teacher of God? Is Gandhi? Is someone in prison convicted of a crime a teacher of God? Is an atheist a teacher of God? So I think it's important to ask yourself if you're a teacher of God. And in my case, I like to think about it as a teacher of the universe. So can I affect change in my future, in my attitude, in my outlook, in abundance in my life, prosperity? So how does all that reflect in what I say and do every day? And we know our teacher, JenniferHadley, named her podcast, Living A Course in Miracles. So she's living what she teaches, and she's putting it in her everyday life. So it's about showing and not just telling for me. But all of that just gave me more questions. So I want to hear about what the Course in Miracles says. Like, what does it really say about being a teacher of God? Drusilla?
Yeah. Well, I'll have to say, I would probably agree with everything you've said, of course. And it's such a complicated topic, I think, because the word teacher of God has so many elements. A teacher, what is that? That's always a student, and a student's always a teacher in some capacity. So that in and of itself is a little complex. And then you have the use of the word God, of course, which gets, everybody riled up, and you can debate it in so many different ways. And, but from what I understand and from what I have learned from the course, specifically from the manual for teachers, is that all are called to be teachers of God, but not all answer. So not everyone answers the call to be a teacher of God. And I guess most of us can relate to that if we grew up in any type of religion. Most of the time, people will say that you're called to be a minister, or you're called to minister to people and things like that. So I think that's the reference to the word call. And it also says that once a person awakens, so once they have that awareness that they're not a body, that this is just a tool for communication, that there is no going back, that they are forever a teacher. and they may be teaching different beliefs. They can show up to mirror other people, right? That's how we all learn, is through other people mirroring back to us. So in that essence, I think everyone is a teacher. Um, Again, the whole, having the call and answering it can get a little complicated and a little fuzzy, even for me too, you know. Um, but yeah, that's kind of my interpretation.
It sounds like kind of like once you see yourself as a spiritual extension from the universe or God or whatever you want to say for you it is, then that you have a realization,
Mm-hmm.
and then you are like officially called a teacher of God, or how does it work?
I don't think it's an official thing.
Mhm.
I think it's how you shape your life. You can only probably make certain decisions and discern certain things with that level of awareness,
Right.
you know? Because if you think you're purely a body, what are you actually discerning? Nothing but illusions, nothing but falsehoods, right? So you're really not discerning anything.
To me, on some level, we're all teaching something.
Yeah.
We're all
Mhm.
showing up in the world. We're all teaching by how we treat others, how we treat ourselves, how we treat the world at large. There is some element of showing up in that. So in my mind, everyone is a teacher of God. And Drusilla, what you were saying, like, or was it Melissa, talking about the body, like once we realize that there is more than this physical form, that's an interesting little twist. Because I believe that even the people that aren't thinking that way, they're still teaching something. They're still
Mhm.
creating the reality with their mind. They're still out there getting reflected back what they have and teaching that on some level.
Yes.
So even if, sorry, Morgan, even if you're a shitty parent, or you're teaching shitty things, is that still of God?
I don't know. I think that's an interesting question. I think
Mhm.
that A Course in Miracles is completely congruent with what Amanda was saying, because it says specifically everyone teaches and teaches all the time. But you're teaching whichever thought system you're identified with. So to be a teacher of God, we could replace the word God with love, because God is love. So you're either teaching love. We could also substitute the word truth.
Yeah.
Or you're teaching the ego's thought system, which is fear-based. So I don't know. I think all are called, like Drusilla said. And if you answer the call, then I think that would mean that you're choosing to teach love. You're choosing to teach truth rather than the ego's fear-based thought system. So, like it or not, you're a teacher. Everybody out there who's listening, you're teaching, and you're teaching all the time. So I think it's a good conversation. Let's get clear about what we're teaching, how we're living, what we're demonstrating, because it's not the words that we're sharing here on this podcast or when we offer people unsolicited advice and tell our loved ones what they should be doing. That's not where we're teaching or how we're teaching. It's how we're living our life. That is the teaching.
Well, Morgan, I think we can just end this podcast right now, because I think explained it very well. I mean, you summed up everything we all just said, and I think that's clear.
Yeah.
Shortest episode ever.
Yeah.
Except we're not going to end here, right? Because you said something important. What are we teaching? What are you teaching? Am I teaching? I never, in the organized Christian religion when it was really talked about you have to go out and evangelize. What's the word?
Yes.
I'm missing the word. Yeah.
Evangelize,
Yeah.
proselytize,
Yeah.
witness.
Yeah.
Right.
All of it.
All of it. I was like, no way would I ever do that. Like, I'm not going to be standing on a street corner with a microphone talking about Jesus, right? That's just not who I am. And yet, as I've gone down this path further and further, what makes me so comfortable is that it's not about really preaching, it's about living it. And that's when I was like, okay, yes, I can do this. Like, I'm all in, because to me, living it is more important than talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely life started switching around when I let go of judging other people as getting life wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
So the shitty parents,
They're teaching.
Are you judging them as
shitty
shitty
course.
parents, or they're judging
Exactly.
themselves as shitty parents?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And and of course, miracles on the basis that we're all whole, perfect, and complete. And these are just illusions that we're all in, these like ego dreamscapes that we're in. And so, yes, I mean, I guess they would be just, teachers of God, because they are perfect, whole, and complete. Even if they may be, we all make choices that are not easy for our lives or congruent with everyone else or this world's way of operating, but we're all still perfect, whole, and complete, right?
One thing that just came into my mind, though, that seems very clear. It seemed clear in my mind, so you guys will have to confirm it for me. But I'm thinking about the difference between what Morgan read and attested to from the course and what I did was, in the one part, they say we are all teachers and we're all teaching all the time, right? But they don't say we're all teachers of God and we're all teachers of God all the time. Now, that's the part that I'm speaking of. And they say, and it specifically does specify that we are all called to be teachers of God, but we don't all answer the call. I think that's a big difference.
Huge.
Yes. And I think it's worth, clarifying, restating. So thank you. And another thing that that resonates for me or speaks to me is, I read someone shared on Instagram a long time ago, and it was a light bulb moment for me, but it was a quote that said, if you want to learn something, read about it. If you want to understand something, study it. And if you want to know something, teach it. So like, as we are aspiring to know the truth, then it would only make sense that we are choosing to teach that as our way of living, because it's for us. It's not for anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah.
So as teachers of God, like holding, I know, Melissa, you were talking about shitty parents, because it's funny just to say, for one, right? And it's a real thing. And if we are labeling other people as getting parenting wrong and holding that image of them as always getting it wrong, is it harder or easier for them to pivot their actions?
Well, it's total judgment, and that's
Yeah.
not how a teacher of God operates. So, yeah,
Mhm.
no, what we would do is to hold them as perfect and send them thoughts of love and compassion about why they may be acting out in the ways that they have, you know.
So what are some ways that you all are teaching love or living love in your life that would maybe be a demonstration, a teaching? My question clear?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So this weekend I went back to I went to visit my mom where I was raised. And when I went to junior high, high school, and when I was done with high school, I was out of my town. Like no looking back, I was out. So I haven't really talked to anyone for like 30 years
Mm.
because it's
Oh,
been a long
wow.
time since I graduated from high school. That was 89. So this time, something just called to me to reach out to a couple of people. And I
Oh.
ended up getting together and having dinner with 4 people that I knew really well. We were on the pom pom squad in high school together. And
I'm going to need a picture.
oh my God, talk about hair. Oh my goodness. Anywho, it was so nice to sit there and talk. And also in high school, I was a young teenager, lots of hormones raging. I probably, hindsight being what it was, I would have done a few things differently, a couple of things I'm not super proud of. And going through this healing process, I can look at it now and understand my behavior. I can understand what happened. I can think about that situation with no blame, shame, or guilt. And one of my friends said, "What happened? What happened to you, between you and this other person?" And I'm like, "You know what? Thank you so much for asking." And I just told them what happened without blame or shame or guilt. And I owned it. And
Mm.
to me, and I got an opportunity to talk about letting go of judgment, judging myself. And we got to have a very healing conversation. And to me, that is me being a teacher of God and going through the process of healing and being able to tell that story in a loving manner, loving to myself and not judging anything about it. So that's one huge way that I was demonstrating a different way to live.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Love
And it was
it.
nice. It was like open, like, yes, I get to bring some light and air to this situation, even though I have resolved it, still was running in the background. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Mm.
And for all of our listeners, we have kind of been listening to your stories, Amanda, and
Yeah.
you have been working through some of this high school stuff.
Yeah.
And how amazing is it that it took you straight home,
Yeah.
straight to your friends, and
Yeah.
straight to healing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I really
Yeah.
didn't equate it. Because like I've been going back to visit my mom for a while now, and she never has, not even once, ever said, "Are you getting together with your high school friends?" Like, and this time she said, "Are you getting together with your high school friends?" And because I wouldn't have even thought about it,
Oh,
and I'm like, you know what? Yes, I am.
cool.
Yeah. And that whole was a learning, living experience, because I posted on Facebook that I was coming in town. Would anybody get together? Right. And the ego mind was like, nobody wants to see you, girl. Right. Like people are judging you. And so I had to get over that fear, that mind loop, and actually take that step forward.
Awesome.
Yeah. So thank you
Yes.
for asking that question, Melissa. It
And
does all line up.
It does. And
Mhm.
your
does.
story reminds me, like, I had a complicated childhood and teenage years, and I use a lot of it. Not that I'm at all an official teacher, of God, but
Yes, you are.
I haven't taken a class and I haven't been certified, but I do use the material. And
Clarify for our listeners that there's no class and no certification.
Yes.
In case they're not picking up on your sarcasm.
Yeah, and Melissa is absolutely a teacher of God.
Yes, she is. She teaches us every day.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I use that material. I use having had struggles to be able to make different choices now and different. I am just more accepting of myself and other people because of the struggles I went through.
Mm-hmm.
And as part of it's so I'm putting this all together with the shitty parents.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a complete picture. You have to have all of it, right? There's no like you have to be a saint and shine and have wings and wear all white to be a teacher of God. It's all about being in this world,
Mm-hmm.
right? And having, some of the best lessons that people learn are from hard times,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
So I love your story, Amanda, because it made me see some of my best material comes from high school.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole, when we're going through it, we talked about this last episode. We don't know what anything is for, right? We don't know what anything is for. And going through that, it didn't felt like it would ever be for good.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Drusilla? Any examples from your life?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Well, I was just thinking about high school, and we have they're all really, really great memories from high school, and all of my friends and I, we still keep in touch, so, but it did come to my mind about a recent experience, and I'm trying to make sure it actually relates, but it's a very delicate and difficult situation. So you all know the film that I'm working on, that one that I'm just starting, and it is based on a true life story. A family member that passed away at the age of 31, and she was a promoter, right? So it's about the world of hip hop and all of that. So there's a couple of scenes in the movie where my brother, who was the minister that I know I've talked about on here before, he actually introduced me to A Force of Miracles. And so with his passing, I thought this was like a perfect opportunity to pay tribute to him as well. So I had talked to my mom about it and talked to his wife about it, and they both were good with it. So then I called the church to see if they had some old film of him, so that I could give it to the actor who would be portraying him, right? And so apparently, one of the deacons at the church mentioned it on Sunday, and his wife got really upset and called me and said, "It's doing a documentary on Woody." And I said, "I don't think anybody is." And she said, "Well, I think so, because nobody's doing thing on my husband." And it just turned into this whole big ranting, and she was so upset. And I initially, of course, I felt my temperature rising. Like, I so already talked to you about everything that was going on. So if you got misleading information, why didn't you just correct it? Because you got it directly from the source, right? And I just took a couple of deep breaths, and I just answered her with so much compassion. And it really was surprising myself, because I immediately thought that she's still grieving. It was just 3 years ago. that he passed. And, it's still in the thick of it because I gently got her off the phone and said, well, why don't we just take some time and just, because it doesn't have to be. I was paying a tribute. And, so let's just talk about it later. Let's just, and that, we got off the phone, but I haven't called her back yet, because it stung in a very deep way because she and I were like the closest, you know, like of all of my siblings, I'm the one that she was closest to, right? And I'm the one that has the strongest connection to her husband. So it kind of like all just has thrown me for a big loop. And so that's why I haven't even called her back yet to kind of talk it through because it's did cut really deeply for me.
So that is an example of being a teacher of God. To me,
Mhm.
that is, Drusilla, because you paused, right? You
Mhm.
wanted to come.
Yeah.
You didn't say come from your loving heart, but you did take the pause. For me, that's what you
Mhm.
meant when you paused in that moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's say like 10, 15 years ago, or when you weren't on this path directly, how would you have responded differently? What would you have been teaching in that time?
Um, I know some things that went through my mind that I
Mm-hmm.
didn't act on, that I let come up and release, is that one small incident or conversation represented what a lot of people have said about her through the years,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I had to say to myself, did that come to me so that I could release those thoughts about, I never entertained those thoughts, because I wanted to maintain the relationship. And that's just how I am. If I want to maintain a relationship with someone and I haven't experienced something personally, then it's just theirs. That's between them, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't get into that. And so I felt like, okay, so in reflection over the last couple of days, it's like, no, this is coming up for a reason. There's something there that needs to be healed, right? And so, and I don't have clarity on it yet, and that's why I haven't called her back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love that you didn't give power to that story about her. Like you
Yeah.
weakened that thought system. Like you were an active um, participant in healing that um, false image or belief that she may have about herself and that others
Mhm.
have expressed about her. You not strengthening that thought system is part of you being a teacher of God.
Yeah, those feelings were so strong that I wanted to say to her, like, I have been the only one protecting you all these years, and which would have been so wrong, right?
Yeah.
It would have been so wrong to say that. So at least I had the time to kind of, I have the time to work through it and get back to her in an even more loving way is what I should do and will do for sure.
It's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, like, who knows? Like, how many times were we told as children that you're a good girl or you're a bad girl? And like
Mhm.
other examples, but just that basic example, like that story gets built up in our mind, and we can choose to teach that story for other people or hold people with Christ vision. There's a word that people may not get, but like hold the truth about people instead. Like, I'm not going to buy into that story that,
Mhm.
you are a know-it-all or you are an asshole or you are, you know what I mean? Like, just choosing not to buy into those stories that people have about themselves is one really powerful way to be a teacher of God, I think.
So what about you, Morgan? Do you have an example?
I had a few different kind of thoughts were running through my mind. I was thinking about how what if John Mark makes a mistake, air quotes, makes a mistake. And, sometimes I choose to be a teacher of God and just respond graciously and with love and non-judgment. And sometimes I choose to respond from the ego's thought system and, do whatever I can to make him feel bad about it and to affirm that story that he's guilty and wrong and bad. But that's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in affirming the truth and being that teacher of God and affirming that, all things are working together for good and it's all perfect and he's perfect and innocent and holy. And so just in our day-to-day relationships and interactions with people, and going back to defenselessness, which we talked about on another episode, when we practice defenselessness, we're demonstrating that our power as children of God, our safety lies in God, and there's nothing that you can do that can hurt me. And so you picture the child throwing a temper tantrum and kicking and screaming, and you're just sitting there holding, you can't hurt me. And then holding their innocence. That's, I don't know, that image just came into my mind. I don't know how it
That was a beautiful image, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Melissa, what about you?
I was just thinking that Drusilla's example is so great because you can have compassion for someone who just lost their husband. 3 years is not that long for people that have been together for a long time. And you can put your ego aside. I'm not saying you, I'm saying me. And you can just offer so much love and grace to somebody that is in that experience. It's harder probably when someone that you really are pissed with or something, but it does give a great example of how you can show up for her and love her through this disagreement, with so much compassion. Yeah. And I would just say for me, I feel really grateful that I've had a chance to change my thoughts and my behavior in the world, and that I can show up more conscious about what I do. And if it teaches someone something, fine. But it's really it's really just to have a more peaceful life. Less conflict, less swimming upriver.
Yeah. And I think when we do things that are following our guidance or our intuition and demonstrating faith and trust, and maybe things that are normally ill-advised, but we're doing it because that's another example of how we teach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is something specific coming to mind, Morgan?
Well, I was just thinking about, my decision to quit my job and move to Costa Rica, all of the logical thinking would be, it's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And all of against my parents' advice, against my I don't really have an accountant, but I have a tax preparer, against my tax preparer's advice, against different things like that. But just taking that bold step of faith, jumping off the cliff, and seeing how I've been carried through it all is teaching people that it's okay to be afraid and to do it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's a great point because it is, like we said the other week, the development of trust. You put trust in outside of what you normally would have. And that is a big part of, it comes directly from the manual for teachers.
Mhm.
It's a perfect example of teaching,
Yeah.
being a teacher of God, for sure.
And I don't remember if we said this in the beginning, but the Manual for Teachers is a pamphlet that is a continuation of the Course in Miracles. And depending on which version of the book that you may have, it would be included at the back after the workbook for students. So that is what we keep referring to.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, Morgan, because some of the people listening, this is all new to them from the questions that we've received. This is a whole new concept of living.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just by bringing it up, you start to just get conscientious. Like you just start thinking about what you're doing more. And not for other people and not for teaching, but just for how can I be more in love? Like acting in love, serving people in love. And yeah. So there's no certification. You don't have to read the whole Course of Miracles. You don't have to even understand the Course of Miracles.
Oh,
Right? You just have to see yourself as love.
Mm-hmm.
How does love operate in the world? And love makes mistakes, And so but it's a good way to start to see yourself in the world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, Christianity has so many examples of the same type of thing, the same language, the same languaging. One of my favorite passages in the Bible, it's in Thessalonians. It's study to be quiet, do your own work, so you may walk towards others and never have lack.
Mm.
First Thessalonians, I think 10 and 11, and I paraphrase that for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's where Quiet Farm came from. That's where this place came from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Quieting the mind, partnering up, doing all of my own internal work, like letting go of judging myself, letting go of judging others. So when I am at a high school reunion of my orchestrating, right, that I can be there and not feel that lack mentality, that I can hold myself in love and everybody else present genuinely, like really, and not feel shame, guilt, not feel any sense of lack or limitation. So that's just the first thing that came to my mind, because that's one of my favorite passages in the Bible. But it's not just studying Course of Miracles. I think that theme of being a teacher of God, I love the word love instead of God, like really living that is one of the threads that wind through many, many religions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes.
I think any path of knowing thyself and, self-development, self-growth, self-love, any self-love practice, even just, letting go of being a people pleaser and honoring yourself and saying no to something. You're teaching that, hey, it's okay to say no and to love yourself and honor yourself in that way. Like we're teaching all the time in all these millions of little ways. So, yeah,
Absolutely. And there's always that wonderful bumper sticker, WWJD.
What would Jesus do? That's funny. I haven't thought about that bumper sticker in a while.
Yeah.
Yes.
What would Jesus
I think that's so funny. So the timing is so perfect for you just said, Melissa. At my brother's funeral, that's what my husband said. He spoke and he said he admired my brother so much that he would actually replace Jesus with Eddie and say,
Oh,
Eddie do in this situation when he was conflicted. I
that's a
think
teacher of
so cute.
God. That's awesome.
Yes.
Gosh, when you get someone asking what you would do, that is profound.
Yes, it is.
Mhm.
So you guys, we're coming to the end of our time here. Is there any final thoughts about being a teacher of God? What does that mean?
I loved the conversation and I loved listening to Melissa talk her way through it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I loved. Because
Thank
it's
you.
perfect.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Mm-hmm.
So Penny's not here, so we don't have a Penny's Post-it. Boo, boo. She
Boo.
is she sent us a picture. She is on a pontoon boat in a lake. I can't pronounce the lake, but it's in North Dakota, real close to Canada. And her sister and her mother are all bundled up. So wherever she is cold, and we are sending her lots of love.
Yeah. And I'm sure she's teaching.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, does anybody have any announcements? Personal?
Nope.
I know that Morgan, you are getting ready to do a talk on Sundays with Spirit. Look, woohoo! So excited.
Yeah.
When is that? So tell us when that is.
Okay, that's Sunday, September 10th. Thank you for asking. So once I've done that, that'll be 3 of us who have officially spoken at the Power of Love Ministries Sunday service. So I'm nominating Melissa and Penny to go next.
Thank you.
Melissa's like, that's a hard no.
That's a hard no. I'm waiting on my certification.
Yeah. You're waiting for that to come.
And when that comes in, I might do it.
Okay, careful what you wish for. I can make a certification. Okay, that's so funny. Well, thank you to all of our listeners. And as always, I'll just mention our website is fivelemonslaughing.com. And our podcast is available on all of the major podcast services. And we're also on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So please consider sharing our podcast with a friend or family member that you think might get a laugh or enjoy it. And we are so grateful for you. See you next week.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.